You made dua last night, and you already knew nothing would change. Not because you don't believe in Allah, not because you stopped caring, but because something inside you felt disconnected. You raised your hands, your voice softened, you said all the right words, but inside, nothing moved, no trembling, no weight, no sense that you were actually being heard. And the moment you finished, your mind went right back to the same worry, the same insecurity, the same quiet fear you had before. You've felt this, haven't you? That strange gap between what your tongue says and what your heart feels, and you try to fix it. You make the dua longer, more emotional, more desperate, but somehow it still feels like you're speaking into silence. Ibn Arabi says this moment is not failure, it is exposure, because the problem is not that Allah is distant, the problem is that you are not present. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why your dua feels empty, what is actually happening inside you when you make it, and how to read one simple dua in a way that changes everything immediately. In this video, we are going to look at 5 very specific things. First, we will expose the hidden reason your dua feels empty even when your words are correct. Then we will look at how the nafs secretly performs dua instead of living it. Then Ibn Arabi will show us why your dua might actually be blocking what you're asking for. Then we will uncover the exact moment inside dua where real transformation begins. And finally, we will learn a completely different way to make dua, one that changes you before it changes your situation. Stay with me, because each step goes deeper than the last. Right now, you don't have a shortage of duas. You have apps full of them. You have bookmarks. You have saved posts. You've heard lectures explaining their virtues. So why does it still feel empty? Because your problem is not what you are saying, it is how you are present while saying it. And this is exactly where Ibn Arabi becomes essential, not as a poet, not as someone speaking in abstract metaphors, but as someone who spent his life analyzing the inner mechanics of worship in Al-Futuhat al-Makkiyah. Ibn Arabi writes that every act of worship has 2 layers, a visible form and an inner reality. Most people perfect the form, very few ever reach the reality. And dua, in his framework, is not just asking Allah for something. It is a moment where your inner state is exposed completely, what you really believe, what you're actually attached to, what you're secretly afraid of. All of it shows up in that moment. Modern psychology calls this cognitive emotional congruence. Researchers have found that when your words and internal state are aligned, your experience feels real and impactful. But when they are not, the action feels hollow. Ibn Arabi described this same mechanism centuries ago as absence of the hearts. Presence.science describes what is happening. Ibn Arabi tells you what to do about it. And what makes this different from most Islamic content is simple. We are not going to focus on what dua to read. We are going to focus on who you are while reading it. Think of a 24-year-old student. He just finished Isha. He's sitting on his bed. The room is dim. His phone is next to him, screen lighting up every few seconds. He picks it up, locks it, puts it face down, then quickly, he raises his hands. He recites a dua he memorized years ago. 30 seconds, maybe. 40, he wipes his face and immediately reaches back for his phone. He feels like he did something right, like he checked box. but something inside him still feels untouched, still restless, still exactly the same. This is not a lack of sincerity. This is something more subtle. Ibn Arabi writes in the Futuhat that actions without are forms without reality. The tongue moves, but the self never arrived. It's like sending a voice message, but the microphone was off. From the outside, it looks complete, but nothing was actually transmitted. Have you ever done this? Finished your deal, and within seconds, your mind jumps back to your phone, your plans, your stress. Not even intentionally. It just happens. Modern psychology calls this automatic behavior. When an action is repeated enough times, it becomes a habit loop. You perform it without awareness. Researchers have found that when awareness drops, emotional engagement drops with it. Ibn Arabi described this centuries ago as absence of presence. Science describes what is happening. Ibn Arabi tells you what to do about it, but here is what most people miss. Your nafs actually prefers this kind of dua because it gives you the feeling of being religious without requiring you to change anything. You said the words, you raised your hands, but nothing inside you had to shift. And that's exactly why it feels empty, because it was never meant to stay the same. An absent heart turns dua into noise. But if empty dua is something the nafs actually prefers, then what happens when your nafs becomes the one making the dua? That is where this gets uncomfortable. Think of a woman in her early 30s. She wakes up for tahajjud. The room is quiet. Everyone else is asleep. She stands, prays, and then sits on the floor. And she begins to cry, not softly, deep. Heavy crying. She asks Allah for something she has wanted for years: marriage, relief, stability. Stability. Her words are sincere. Her tears are real. But underneath all of it, there is something else. Attachment. Not to Allah, but to the outcome. She is not just asking, she is holding on to a very specific version of how her life should look, and without realizing it, that attachment becomes the center of her dua. Ibn Arabi writes in Fushas al-Hikam that attachment to created forms veils the heart from witnessing the divine source behind them. In other words, when you become attached to the result, you lose sight of the one who gives it. It's like looking into a mirror, but only caring about your reflection, and forgetting that without light, you wouldn't see anything at all. This is where it gets uncomfortable, because sometimes your dua is not for Allah, it is for control. Modern psychology calls this attachment bias. Researchers have found that when a person becomes emotionally attached to a specific outcome, their perception narrows. They stop seeing alternatives. They stop noticing what is actually happening. Ibn Arabi described this as a veil over the heart. Science describes it. Ibn Arabi tells you what to do about it. Ask yourself honestly, when you make dua, are you asking Allah, or are you asking for your plan to be approved? Because those are not the same thing. And this is why sometimes even the most emotional duas feel heavy, because they are not free, they are tied to expectation. You didn't ask Allah, you asked your expectation. But even this is not the deepest problem, because what happens when your words ask, but your inner state quietly refuses? That is where the real block begins. Think of a 27-year-old man. He's alone in his car, late at night, engine off, streetlights flickering through the windshield. He leans back, and finally makes dua.ya Allah. Fix my life. He says it slowly, seriously, but inside, there is a voice he doesn't say out loud. This is not going to change. He doesn't want to believe that, but it's there, quiet, persistent, and it sits right behind every word he says. So his tongue asks, but his inner state denies. Ibn Arabi explains in the Futuhat that when there is contradiction between the inner state and outward speech, a barzakh forms, a barrier between intention and realization, not outside you, inside you. It's like pressing the gas pedal while holding the brake. Movement is attempted, but friction cancels it. And here is the part most people never consider. The problem is not weak dua. The problem is divided being. You are saying one thing, believing another, and feeling something else. Entirely modern psychology calls this cognitive dissonance. When belief and behavior conflict, the mind experiences internal tension, and instead of resolving it, most people ignore it. Ibn Arabi goes further. He says this tension is not something to ignore, it is something to confront, because that split is the very thing blocking your presence. Science describes the tension. Ibn Arabi tells you what to do about it. So ask yourself, when you make dua, what part of you actually believes it? And what part of you is just repeating words? Because both are present, and until they become one, your dua will feel divided. Your dua is not blocked, it is split. But if the problem is division, then where does unity actually begin? There is a moment inside dua that most people rush past, and that moment changes everything. Think of a man in his late 30s. He has been making the same dua for years. Same words, same requests, same structure. One night, he starts again, raises his hands, begins speaking, but halfway through, he stops, not because he forgot the words, because something feels off for the first time. He notices it, the repetition, the distance, the lack of weight, and instead of continuing, he goes silent. 10 seconds, maybe more. Then he says something different, not polished, not memorized. Ya Allah, I don't even know what to ask anymore. And something shifts, not outside, inside. Ibn Arabi describes this in Futuhat's Al-Hikam as the state of absolute need. Not rehearsed need, not controlled need, but honest. The recognition that you don't even fully understand yourself. This is where the self begins to dissolve, not disappear, but soften. It's like a cracked cup. Before, it was sealed, controlled. Now, it lets something in. And this is the moment most people avoid, because it feels vulnerable, unstructured, uncertain. But this is where dua becomes real. Because now, you are not performing, you are present, and presence is what transforms the act. Real dua begins where control ends. But even this is not the full picture, because there is something even deeper, something that completely changes how you understand dua itself. You have been taught your entire life that dua changes your situation. Ask, and you will receive. Make dua, and things will shift. And that is true, but it is incomplete. Ibn Arabi turns this idea inside out. He suggests that dua is not primarily designed to change your situation, it is designed to change you so that you can receive what was already written for you. That means the delay, the silence, the emptiness you feel are not signs of rejection. They are part of the process. They are shaping you into someone who can actually hold what you are asking for. Because if you received it as you are now, it might not even benefit you, or worse, it might harm you. So the dua continues, not to convince Allah, but to transform you. This is the part most Islamic. Content never reaches, because it requires you to stop measuring dua by results and start measuring it by who you are becoming through it. So, now the question changes, not why hasn't this been answered, but what is this dua doing to me? What is it exposing? What is it softening? What is it removing? Because maybe the answer has already begun, just not in the way you expected. Now let's make this real. Not theory, not ideas. Things you can do tonight. First, the pause before words. Before you say anything, sit still for 10 seconds. No words, no movement, just awareness. Feel your breath. Feel your body. This interrupts autopilot. It brings you back. This is how you break the habit loop from before. Second, detach the outcome sentence. Instead of saying, give me this, say align me with what is best. Even if it's not what I expect. This loosens attachment. This is how you remove the veil. Third, say one honest sentence. Drop the long list. Say one sentence that is completely real, even if it's via Allah. I don't feel anything right now. That honesty creates alignment. It resolves the split and opens the door to presence. These are not longer duas, they are deeper ones. Think back to that moment you made dua and felt nothing before this video. You thought something was wrong with your faith. Now you see it differently. You see the absence, the attachment, the division, and you see the doorway. Because the goal was never to say more, it was to arrive fully, to stand in front of Allah, not just with your words, but with yourself. And that changes everything, because now dua is no longer a task, it is an encounter. The dua that changes your life is the one that changes you first. Now ask yourself honestly, the last time you made dua, were you asking Allah? Or were you performing the act of asking? And which one are you going to do next time?